जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी गोपी जनवल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन नन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन 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 व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारी वनचारी जयो राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्णा हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम हरे हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo, Nittai Gaura Haribo, Haribo. Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Haribo. So before we go into today's topic, let us first chant the Mangalacharan prayers. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपथकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता रान्ता कान्ता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome you all once again for our Friday Satsang. So before we go into today's topic, we will be discussing from chapter 4. Chapter 4 is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. So today we'll be discussing the 10th verse of Transcendental Knowledge. But before we go into that, let us have a small recap. Otherwise, we won't understand what we are discussing. So can you see the screen? The screen visible?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So chapter 3, at the end of chapter 3, Arjuna asks Krishna, he asks him, like, what impels one to commit sin, despite the fact that he knows that he is committing a sinful act? And Krishna gives the answer. He says that karma is the reason, lust is the reason for one to commit sinful acts again and again. So what is the meaning of karma? Or what does lust actually mean? So karma means, in simple words, sense gratification. One who is exploiting this material nature just to satisfy his senses. That is what is known as karma or lust. So he says, Krishna says that lust is the greatest enemy of the soul. And obviously, Arjuna asks him, so how can I uh, get rid of this enemy of the soul? And the answer Bhagavan gives is that one has to acquire transcendental knowledge. So lust conquers one's spiritual knowledge or transcendental knowledge. And using by making use of transcendental knowledge itself, one can control lust or one can conquer lust. But in order to receive transcendental knowledge, one must be qualified. So that is why Bhagavan first explained in chapter 3 about Karma Yoga, or more specifically, Nishkama Karma Yoga. So what does Nishkama Karma Yoga means? Nishkama Karma Yoga is where one does activity without expecting any, he's not expecting the rewards of his activities. He's not attached to the results of his activities. He just does it for the pleasure of the Lord. That is actual Nishkama Karma Yoga. So when one has reached the stage of Nishkama Karma Yoga, one becomes eligible to receive transcendental knowledge. And what is the opposite of Nishkama Karma Yoga? That is Sakama, Sakama Karma. Sakama Karma means where one does activities for sense gratification. He expects something in return. So he does karma or sakarma. And when one does not expect any results of his activities, any rewards of his activities, that is known as Karma Yoga, or more specifically, it's known as Nishkama Karma Yoga. So when one reaches that stage of Nishkama Karma Yoga, then he becomes eligible to receive transcendental knowledge. So in chapter 4, Bhagavan is giving this transcendental knowledge to Arjuna. And the process of receiving this transcendental knowledge is, how can one receive this transcendental knowledge? Is it by attending some college or school? Krishna again gives the process. He says that, first of all, he says this is a science of yoga. If you can see the screen here, he uses two words. First, he says it's imperishable. Avyayam, imperishable. Imperishable means it doesn't end with this yuga, or it doesn't end with the passage of time. It is not. It cannot be destroyed. It is imperishable, and it is a science. Science. What does the word science mean? Science is a stream of subject in this material world. What does science mean? It is a stream of. It is a subject which deals with finding out the reality. Suppose we want to find out a result of a particular process. We go through a certain set of experiments and try to find out the truth. That is what science is about. So the science may or may not be true. But when it comes to spiritual science, the truth is always the same. It doesn't change with time. So Bhagavan uses the word here, science of yoga. It doesn't just use the word yoga. He says it is a science of yoga. And it is imperishable. And first, this is not the first time that he's going to speak Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. He gave this information to the sun god by the name of Vivaswan. And how many million years back he gave this knowledge? He gave this knowledge 120 million years back to Vivaswan. And Vivaswan in turn gave the same information to Manu, and Manu to his son Ikshvaku, and thereby it came down to us. So this process is known as the disciplic succession or the Guru Shishya Parampara. Through this Guru Shishya Parampara only one can acquire the science of yoga. It is not by attending a formal course or a formal college or place where you can study this science. It should come from a proper source. And that proper source is from whom? It should come from Bhagavan. Starting from Bhagavan, it should come down. But what happened over time is, due to the passage of time, time destroys everything. And as time passed, this science appeared to be lost. Again, in the second verse, Bhagavan says that this science was lost. The science of yoga was lost. So, for the benefit of Arjuna, now Bhagavan is going to, in the third verse, he says that he's going to give this knowledge to Arjuna. So why did he choose Arjuna? So here the qualification to hear or study Bhagavad Gita is given in this verse. And what is the qualification? Arjuna had two qualifications. He was his Bhakta and Sakha. He was Bhagavan's devotee and Bhagavan's friend. There were so many people in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. There were so many other qualified people. But Bhagavan specifically chose Arjuna because he was his dearmost devotee as well as friend. There were the other Pandavas there. The whole army of the Pandavas, the whole army of the Kauravas were there. Everyone was listening to the Bhagavad Gita. But Bhagavan chose Arjuna because he had this qualification. So this must be one's attitude to approach Bhagavad Gita. In today's world, there are so many editions of the Bhagavad Gita. So many people have given commentaries to the Bhagavad Gita. But they give their own interpretations, their own understanding of Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita should be, first of all, it should be received from the proper source. It should come from a proper Guru Shishya Parampara. And one should approach the Bhagavad Gita at least with some faith. He should accept that Bhagavan Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that mood, he should approach the Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, Bhagavan uses the word here, you see, transcendental mystery. He uses the word transcendental mystery. Otherwise, this will be a complete mystery. We won't understand the Bhagavad Gita. So in order to understand this mysterious science, one should become a devotee of the Lord. Otherwise, you won't be able to understand. So this is the devotee's attitude. A devotee's attitude is that he accepts Krishna as Bhagavan and he accepts Bhagavan's energy, that is this material world. He accepts it as Bhagavan's property and he uses the material objects, the material world in Bhagavan's service. This is the attitude of a devotee. Whereas an asura or a demon, when we say demon, we shouldn't think that demon is someone with horns and protruding teeth and dark skinned, and that is not what is meant by asura or demonic person. A demonic person refers to one with a demonic attitude. That means his attitude is just the opposite of a devotee's attitude. His attitude is that everything belongs to me. The whole world that I see is for my enjoyment. This material nature is meant to be exploited for my sense gratification. That is the attitude of a demon. So when they read the Bhagavad Gita, when demonic people or people with asuric mentalities, when they study or read the Bhagavad Gita, they keep Krishna aside. They want his teachings, but they don't want Bhagavan. So this is what is meant by demonic attitude. Now it's Ramayana month. If we look at Ravana, Ravana was a Pandit, but he wanted only Bhagavan's energy. He wanted Mother Sita. He wanted to enjoy Mother Sita. He didn't want Bhagavan. He didn't want Lord Ram. Similarly, if you look at Duryodhana, Duryodhana didn't want Krishna's army. He didn't want Krishna. He wanted Krishna's army only. He didn't want Krishna. So this is what is meant by demoniac attitude. They don't want Bhagavan, but they want to enjoy his creation. They want to enjoy his teachings. They want to spread his teachings for their own benefit. This is what is meant by demoniac attitude. And becoming a friend. Why does Bhagavan say that? Because you are my friend, I'm giving you this information. Because if someone is very close to you, then with them you will share your intimate secrets. Something within your chest you will share to your close friend. And since Arjuna was his very dearmost friend, Bhagavan chose Arjuna to be the recipient of Bhagavad Gita. And he's repeating Bhagavad Gita because that disciplic succession, the Guru Shishya Parampara, was broken. So that is why he was going to repeat Bhagavad Gita. Then obviously Arjuna had this doubt. You said that you gave this information to Vivaswan 120 million years ago, but Vivaswan is much senior to you. So how can I understand this fact? You are my contemporary. You are my friend. You are my contemporary. So how can I understand that you gave this information to Vivaswan, sun god? Now, why did Arjuna ask this question? Arjuna is a pure devotee of the Lord. He very well knows that Krishna is Bhagavan. Then why did Arjuna ask this question? Arjuna asked this question for our own benefit. It is for our benefit that he asked this question. Because in today's world, there are so many people who don't believe in God. And there are people who see Krishna as some superhuman figure. They don't accept Krishna as God. So for Arjuna wanted to hear this information from Krishna's mouth only. He wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth. He wanted to hear it from the authoritative source. He wanted Krishna himself to say or establish his supremacy. So that is why Arjuna asked this question. It is for the benefit of the whole mankind that Arjuna asked this question. It is not because that Arjuna was in ignorance. It is not out of ignorance that Arjuna was asking this question. Arjuna, being a pure devotee of the Lord, he very well knew the answers to all of this. In fact, this is all Krishna's Leela. He put Arjuna in covered by Yoga Maya so that he could enact this pastime of giving Bhagavad Gita to whole of mankind through Arjuna. So now Arjuna, Krishna is going to speak about his supreme position. And that is where actually the transcendental knowledge starts to flow. From text 5 onwards, this Jnana Yoga is going to flow from the lotus mouth of Sri Bhagavan. So then Bhagavan says that I have passed many, many births. You have also passed many births, but you can't recall any of them. But I can recall all the pastimes that I have enacted before. So just imagine, we can't even recall what we did 5 minutes back. If someone asks you, what did you do at 11 a.m., 10 minutes, 20 seconds, what did you exactly do? We can't recall. It's not possible because we are so dull-headed. Now, even if we are so sharp and intelligent, we can't recall our previous birth. We have passed so many millions and millions of births to reach this human stage. And we have passed also so many millions of human births also, but we can't recall any of them. So here Bhagavan is establishing his supremacy. He is Trikala Darshi. He knows everything. He knows past, present, and future. But that is not our position. So from the very start itself, Bhagavan is showing his supreme position. And then he continues. He describes about his nature. He says that I am unborn. Though I appear to take birth, I am actually Ajam. I am unborn. I don't take birth actually. I just appear in this world just to perform my pastimes. As you know, when he appeared in the prison house, um, uh, when he presented or rather appeared as the son of Devaki. It is not like any human birth who appears in this world. How do we take birth in this world? We come out all covered with blood and slime and completely nude. No, not even wearing undergarments, we come into this world. But how did Bhagavan come? He came in his beautiful four-handed form. He had this golden crown, golden helmet, shining earrings, Kaustabam gem, and Srivatsa, the mark of Srivatsa. Then he had all the four weapons in his hands, and he was so effulgent. He was looking so wonderful and so beautiful. So that is how Bhagavan appeared. And then he took the two-handed form, and then he took the form of a child. This is how Bhagavan appeared. So these things cannot be understood by non-devotees. How is it possible? They ask. How are such things possible? But here Bhagavan is saying that I am unborn, I don't take birth, and my body never deteriorates. Why? Because he is spiritual in nature. He never deteriorates. And then he makes a very important point. I am the Lord of all living entities. And I appear in every millennium after millennium in my spiritual form. So when Bhagavan came 5,000 years ago, don't think that he came in a material form. So very clearly in Bhagavad Gita, he is establishing his supremacy, he is establishing how he came into this form, into this world. And then, why does he appear in this world? Very famous sloka. So all devotees should know why this particular shloka, why our Lord appears in this world. So there are many scheduled incarnations of the Lord. But that doesn't mean that he should appear according to such and such schedule. It is according to his own free will that Bhagavan can appear and disappear. It's according to his own free will that he appears in a particular family. He chooses certain people as his parents. That is all Bhagavan's free will. But why he particularly appears is because when there is a decline in religious practice and when there is a rise in adharma, when dharma comes down and when adharma rises, at that time Bhagavan appears. And what does he do? In the next verse, he says, after appearing, he gives three reasons why he appears. He says that it is to free my devotees, to deliver the pious, sadhus, and to annihilate the miscreants. The second reason, to destroy the miscreants, to deliver the devotees, and to re-establish dharma. He gives three reasons. So here in this purport, in the purport of this text 8, sadhu, Prabhupada describes as sadhu is one who is transcendently situated, one who is above the three modes of material nature. Sattva guna, rajaguna, tamaguna. They are above the three modes. They are on the spiritual platform. They are on the transcendental platform. Then why does Bhagavan appear to deliver someone who is already on the transcendental platform? So, or in other words, what is he actually delivering them from? The answer is Bhagavan is actually delivering them from the separation that they are feeling from Bhagavan. The separation that the pure devotees feel, that separation he delivers them from. So he comes actually for the satisfaction of his devotees. That is what is meant by paritranaya sadhuna, to deliver the pious. And annihilating the miscreants, that is actually side business for him. His main business is he comes for the pleasure of his devotees. And destroying the asuras, the miscreants, the demoniac people, that is just a side business for him. And to them also, he shows his mercy. So he delivers the pious, and though he is actually annihilating the miscreants, in turn, he is giving them liberation. So the miscreants, though they die at the hands of Bhagavan, they are also being liberated. So this shows the mercy of Bhagavan or the impartial nature of Bhagavan. And then, what happens then when one who understands Bhagavan's nature? So, Bhagavan has come, and in the next text, he explains what will happen to one who understands Bhagavan's appearance and his activities. So, this is a shloka which gives us hope, a shloka which encourages to understand Krishna in truth. And this was discussed last time. So, just by understanding who Bhagavan is, understanding his Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela, what happens is one can go back to Godhead. One can leave this material world and go back to the spiritual world where he can serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, the impersonalists and the yogis, they take so much of trouble to understand what is truth. And their understanding may not be perfect because there are different levels by which we can understand Bhagavan. One is the most lowest level is understanding that Bhagavan has no form, he is impersonal. Then comes the Paramatma realization, where yogis, after so many years of tapasya, austerity, they understand that Bhagavan exists as Paramatma in the hearts of all living entities, and they focus all their energies onto that Paramatma. And then comes the topmost, where one realizes that Bhagavan has a form, he has his own abode, where he performs various wonderful leelas, and that is known as Bhagavan realization. So there is Brahman realization, then comes Paramatma realization, and finally Bhagavan realization. So one who has reached Bhagavan realization, the advantage is that he can go back to the spiritual world. Whereas those who are stuck in Paramatma realization or Brahman realization, they have the risk of falling back to this material world. They may reach the transcendental platform, but they cannot enter the spiritual world where they can perform activities with the Lord, where they can play with the Lord, where they can serve the Lord in various ways. That intimate relationship doesn't occur for these yogis. So they always have the risk of falling back to this material world. So just imagine they have performed so much, they've gone through so much of trouble, and still there is a risk of falling down. So that is why Prabhupada said that this is akin to spiritual suicide, because after so much of trouble, they reached that particular stage, they reached the spiritual platform, and in spite of that, they fell back to this material world because there is no activity at their level. And the nature of the soul is to serve. The dharma of the soul is seva. And since there is no one to serve, there is no activity, they have to fall back to this material world to serve someone. So usually they end up taking birth as maybe in a rich family or in a family of devotees where they can again progress forwards. So if there is, so that is why association is very important. If we want to make progress, we have to associate with devotees. And if there is no association, there is no bhakti. And if there is no bhakti, there is no Krishna. Okay, so now we come to today's topic, which is 4.10. Okay. Vitaragabhaya krodha manmaya mam upashritaha bahavo jnana tabasa utamadbhavamagataha. Vitaragabhaya krodha manmaya mam upashritaha bahavo jnana tabasa putamadbhavamagataha. Vitaragabhaya manmaya mam upashrita bahavo jnana tabasa bhutamadbhavamagata. Someone would like to read the synonyms?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Hey Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vidaraga Nunmaya Mapupashitaha Bahaво Jnana-tapasa Udanat-bhava-magataha. Hare Krishna. Nam.
Hare Krishna. Someone can read the synonyms, please.
Hare Krishna. Vita, freed from. Raga, attachment. Vaya, fear. Krodha, and anger. Mat, mayaha, fully in me. Mam, in me. Upashritaha, being fully situated. Bahavaha, many. Jnana, of knowledge. Tapasa, by the penance. Utaha, being purified. Mat bhavam, transcendental love for me. Agataha, attained. Hare Krishna.
Please continue, Prabhu. You can read the translation.
Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. Purport. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the supreme absolute truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the supreme can be a person. Such materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of a personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the supreme to be impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. And so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of the spiritual existence attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all, being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation. They become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in a diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything. Being angry. This no, here, right? Yes. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all. Being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life, and some of them want to merge into supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. This last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their affective hallucination are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. One has to get rid of all three stages of material consciousness: attachment to material life, fear of spiritual personal identity, and conception of a void that arises from frustration in life. To get free from these three stages of material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord guided by the bona fide spiritual master and follow the disciplines and regulatory principles of devotional life. The last stage of devotional life is called Bhava or transcendental love of Godhead. According to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.4.15 to 16, the signs of devotional service, Adav Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango Tata Bhajana Kriya Tato Anartha Nivritti Syat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tataha Ata Saktis Tato Bhavas Tata Prema Yukdanchati Sadhakanam Ayam Premna Pradurbhave Bhavet Kramaha. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins a process of devotional service. By execution of the devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachments, attains a steadiness in self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further attachment forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in Bhava or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love for God is called Prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. In the Prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being free from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations of that result in void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So let us see the meaning of this verse. Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. One who is free from three things: Raga, Bhaya, and Krodha. That is attachment, fear, and anger. What happens to him? Manmaya Mam Upashrita. He takes refuge, he takes shelter of Bhagavan. Bahavo Jnana Tapassa. And this has been practiced in the past by so many people. And what happened to them? Bhutamad Bhavam Agata. They developed transcendental love for Krishna. They reached the prema stage of bhakti. So in the previous sloka, Bhagavan said that one who knows me, one who knows my activities, he doesn't have to take birth in this world. Here he goes one step further, and he says that by knowing him, or by being absorbed in him, or rather, how can one become absorbed in Krishna? How can one be in full Krishna consciousness? That is what he is discussing here in this shloka. So this is a shloka which explains us how one can reach the topmost stage of prema bhakti, or loving God. So three categories are mentioned here, or three categories of people are mentioned here, or three obstacles that we have to face when we practice bhakti. So let us see each one in detail. The first one is raga. Raga means attachment. Raga. So what does attachment mean? So if you look at today's world, 99.9% of the people are in this state. They are so much attached to this material world. They are so much attached to their country, to their family, to their own selves. They are very much attached to their bodies. And they are so much involved in the activities of this world. And when you go and try to instruct such people, when you try to tell them, or please come for satsang, or please try to learn the Bhagavad Gita, what is the immediate answer they give? They say, I have no time. I have no time for all these activities. Why? Because they are so much involved in their materialistic activities. And even if they have time, they are so dull-headed that they cannot assimilate what is being told to them. They cannot understand spiritual matters. So that is why it's very important that we follow certain rules and regulations when practicing bhakti or any spiritual path for that matter. If you have to understand all these subjects, and Krishna himself says that it's a mystery, it's a mysterious science. So you have to be intelligent. So that is why we have certain dietary restrictions. People often ask us, why don't you eat meat, fish, eggs? What is wrong in having all this? What is wrong in having even onion, garlic? That is not non-vegetarian. What is wrong with that? So all these fall in the category of tamoguna, these kind of food. And if you have food in the mode of tamoguna, you will fall more and more into tamoguna. And the more you are into tamoguna or in the mode of ignorance, then it becomes very hard to understand all these spiritual subjects. So here Bhagavan is saying one who is very much attached to this world, for him it is a big obstacle to understand these spiritual matters. And when we become more attached to matter, we become less inclined to become attached to spirit. So matter, spirit, two things are there. Now we are more attached to matter. That is why we cannot understand Bhagavan. We cannot understand his form, his activities, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. It's very difficult for us to understand. But the more we become detached from matter, then the more we become attached to Bhagavan. So how do we become detached from matter? By practicing. That is what we call sadhana. We have to take up spiritual practice. So that is why we chant every day the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. By repeated chanting the names of Lord, what happens is we gradually become detached from matter and we gradually move, we become more attracted to Bhagavan. Then we develop more interest to hear about Bhagavan. Initially, we won't have any interest to hear Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavan's Leelas. But the more we chant, then the more we want to hear about Bhagavan. Then we want to associate with devotees. Our whole consciousness starts to take a change when we start chanting the holy names. So, one who is attached, and especially if he's materialistically very comfortable, happy, then he will never think of Bhagavan. He will think, why should I approach God? I'm already comfortable here. I have everything in life. God has no place in my life. I'm anyway comfortable. So there's no need for God in my state. So this is the problem of becoming too much engaged in the activities of this world. Actually, Prabhupada said that we don't have to pray for our bread. Most of the people, they go to the temple for what? Or any place of worship. Oh God, please give me this, please give me that. They want something from Bhagavan. That is why they go to the temples. Most of the so-called pious people. But actually, Prabhupada said that there is no need to ask for bread for God because everything will be provided. Actually, we are not, when we go to the temple asking for bread or money, we are actually showing our love for bread and not for Bhagavan. We are showing our love for bread and not for Bhagavan. So raga prevents us from manmaya, from becoming attached to Bhagavan. So when we think of bread or money, we are actually praying to God because we want these things for our own satisfaction. And by doing so, that prevents us from upasrita, becoming or taking shelter of Krishna, upasrita. So raga, that is what is raga about. So raga is one obstacle that one has to overcome. Then fear, bhaya. Now what does fear refer here to? So from being very materialistically involved in this world, there may be a small percentage of people who might start to think, why am I suffering in this world? Isn't there a way out of this suffering? And then they start inquiring. And then they start to hear various philosophies. So they will hear Advaita philosophy, Dvaita philosophy, all kinds of philosophy. Usually they'll be very intellectual people, and they will hear from every place. Here and there, they'll tend to accumulate all kinds of knowledge and philosophy. They try to hear all kinds of philosophies, and they become so confused. They become so confused to such a state that they said, I was much better I was much better before hearing all these philosophies. All these philosophies have made me so confused. And oh, sorry, that is about the anger. Fear is when they come to a state, they understand that this form is the cause of all material suffering. Because I have this body, I'm suffering in this world. So better to give up this body. They become fearful of any kind of form. So when a devotee comes in touch with them and tells them that after this birth, the soul's journey continues, and if you attain a spiritual body, you can go back to Bhagavan's abode where you can enjoy unlimitedly. The moment they hear the word form or even spiritual form, they become so fearful. Bhaya takes over them. Fear takes over them. And they said, I don't want any kind of form, because if I take a form, I'll have to suffer. So even about spiritual form, they become afraid to take that form, because they think that the root of all miseries is this form, which to a certain extent is correct. So bhaya is another main obstacle. And krodha is the one which I mentioned earlier. They tend to hear all kinds of philosophies. They become so confused, and then they decide, okay, enough is enough. I was much better off before. Now, after hearing all these kinds of philosophies, I have become more frustrated and angry. I don't want anything. No philosophy, no God. They actually become atheists, which is even worse. And in order to overcome their frustration, they do something even more abominable, which we read in this purport. What do? They take to intoxicants. They take to drugs, intoxicants, alcohol, all such abominable stuff they take to. And the hallucinations that they experience, they think that these are all spiritual visions that they are having, which is even worse. So these are the three obstacles that one has to overcome. One is attachment, one is fear, and the last is anger or krodha. So Bhagavan is saying, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. Become free from Raga, Bhaya, and Krodha. So how can one become free from all this? Again, in the purport, Prabhupada gives the solution. One has to take shelter of a spiritual master. Spiritual master means one who comes in a proper Guru Parampara. Not just any person who's just wearing saffron, who's wearing a lot of malas, has long hair, nice white flowing beard. No. Guru is someone who is fully Krishna conscious and who comes in any of the four sampradayas. So there is Sri Sampradaya, there is Kumara Sampradaya, there is Rudra Sampradaya, and there is Brahma Sampradaya. So one who comes in any of these authorized sampradayas and one who is fully Krishna conscious is a proper a bona fide spiritual master. So one who comes in such a parampara, one should take shelter of such a spiritual master. And one should learn the process of bhakti from such a spiritual master. Thereby, one can gradually overcome these three obstacles of raga, bhaya, and krodha. So when one starts practicing, he will go through that 9 stages of bhakti, which starts with shraddha. Shraddha means that preliminary faith that one has. So when we approach any subject, we should have some faith. Suppose you want to learn a particular subject, suppose you want to learn medicine, then you should have some faith in the teacher. Otherwise, you won't be able to understand that subject. Similarly, when you want to study this spiritual science, this mysterious science, then you should approach it with faith. So Shraddha, Shra means heart and Da means to give. So the word Shraddha literally means to give your heart. So when you open up your heart, what happens? There is so much of impurities in one's heart. I'm talking about the conditioned souls in this world. Their hearts are filled with mainly 6 enemies: lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, and envy. We have so much of impurities in our heart. All these impurities start to gradually clear. So, Shraddha to begin with is Shraddha, which is a soft kind of faith. It's not fixed. Suppose someone gives another version, immediately our faith will change. So um, it is not a fixed kind of faith. It's a kind of preliminary faith. So when one starts to hear about Bhagavan for the first time, then he develops interest and he starts associating with devotees. So that comes to the second stage of Sadhu Sangha. So the first stage is Shraddha, then comes Sadhu Sangha. And when he starts to associate with devotees, what happens is his faith starts to become more stronger. His faith starts to become more stronger and he starts to hear more about Bhagavan, Shravanam. When he starts to hear about Bhagavan, the 6 enemies in within which is within oneself, that slowly starts to get clear. So he takes up a spiritual practice like chanting the holy names of the Lord, which brings him to the third stage, bhajana kriya, and by doing so, he goes on to the fourth stage, which is anartha nivritti. Anartha nivritti means the clearing of the impurities within one's heart. He starts to become pure. So these first 4 stages are like an uphill course. You have to really work. If you want to go uphill and you are riding a bicycle, you have to really pedal hard to reach the summit. So these 4 stages are like that: Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, and Anartha Nivritti. Once you reach the summit, then comes the downhill course, where you don't have to pedal. It becomes a very easy journey downwards. So the next 5 stages are like that. So after Anartha Nivritti comes Nishta. Nishta means one becomes fixed in his path. He's absolutely sure what he's supposed to do. Suppose someone comes and tries to dissuade him, he will say, no, I know what I'm doing. I'm fixed on my path. There is no dilly-dallying. He is absolutely fixed. That is Nishta. Then comes Ruchi. Ruchi means he develops a taste. He enjoys chanting the names of the Lord. Now we are chanting because our spiritual master ordered us to chant every day. It's not with, at least in my case, it's not with taste that I'm chanting the names of the Lord. Spiritual master told me to chant minimum 16 rounds every day, so I'm chanting 16 rounds every day. But when one reaches the stage of ruchi or taste, he relishes chanting the names of the Lord. Even today, I just shared one video after a japa session. I was just showing the video of Pada Sevana Mataji. This Mataji is from, she's no more in this world. She was from Azerbaijan. And it's a long story. To make it short, she came to Ahobilam where she started doing the neglected Narasimha prayers. Narasimha worship was neglected in Ahobilam. She came all the way from Azerbaijan and she started resuming the prayers of Narasimha Deva. And I was just sharing that video where someone was chanting the names of Bhagavan, and just when she heard Bhagavan's name, she started weeping. That was her state of absorption in Bhagavan's names. So here, Ruchi. Ruchi means one has that taste to chant and hear about Bhagavan. Then becomes Asakti. Asakti means it even goes one more stage above where one becomes very much attached. There is no way of going back. Becomes so much attached in hearing Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela of Bhagavan. So, Ruchi, Asakti, and then comes Bhava. Bhava is just the preliminary stage of the topmost stage of prema. And prema, as you know, is the topmost stage, the highest stage, the perfection of life, where one is in a loving state with Bhagavan. So here Bhagavan is talking about that state. Puta madbhava magata. How can one reach that topmost stage of prema? That is through vitaraga bhaya krodha. By becoming free from attachment, bhaya and krodha, one can progress from Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruji, Asakti, Bhava, and Prem. Okay, so that's in short about this verse. Before we end, I'll just make one interesting comment. This Vitaraga Bhayakrodha, we have come across this word in the second chapter also. In the second chapter, in text 54, Arjuna asks Krishna, what is the consciousness of someone who has reached the transcendental platform? And in reply to that, in text 56, Bhagavan gives the answer, where again the word Vitaraga Bhayakrodha comes. He says that one who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, here he is called as Sthidadir, one who is steady. Sthidadir Muni Uchyate, one who is a sage of steady mind. So just because this word came again, I just quoted this verse. So one should understand that attachment, raga, bhaya, and krodha are the coverings of the soul. That is what keeps us bound to this material world. And when we hear about Bhagavan, and when we start taking up a spiritual practice, when we chant the names of Bhagavan, and when we assimilate this transcendental knowledge, assimilate means we not only just hearing, we put it into practice. When we assimilate this transcendental knowledge, it frees us from these three obstacles of raga, bhaya, and krodha. And then we can become fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So this is in short about 4.10. And then finally, Arjuna, after hearing this, Arjuna might have a doubt. He might ask Krishna, okay, people who have a desire to attain you, they will try to overcome these three obstacles. But what about those people who don't have a desire to attain you and still they approach you? What happens to such people? The answer to that is given in 4.11, which we shall discuss next week. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much for the very, very crystal clear message, we can say, with so much clarity. And from the beginning, you explained the whole philosophy and the tattva and the importance of the Krishna consciousness very nicely. I think definitely everybody should have the message should be very clear. But still, if somebody has any doubts on what Prabhu has explained or anything to add, so please, you can unmute yourself and you can ask Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Anuttama Gopal Prabhu. Prabhu, thank you so much for the nectarian lecture. As Shavana Prabhu told, very crystal clear. Prabhu, you may just amplify about the destination about those who have realized with the Brahman and those who are realized with Paramatma. So that I think devotees will have this doubt in their mind. Even I also have about those who are Paramatma realized ones.
Brahman realization, as we discussed earlier, that's the first stage or the preliminary stage where one realizes that Bhagavan exists
Yes,
in a
Prabhuji. Prabhuji,
person.
about destination, about the destination Brahmajyoti.
So impersonalists or Brahman realized people, they can reach or they merge into the Brahman effulgence. Brahman effulgence means the Brahma Jyoti which emanates from the Lord's form. That is the maximum destination up to where they can reach. They can merge into Bhagavan's effulgence. The Paramatmavadis, they have the option, that is, if their understanding further matures, then they can enter into the spiritual world. So the Brahma Jyoti is like the boundary of the spiritual world where the impersonals reach. The Paramatmavadis, if their understanding further matures and goes into Bhagavan realization, they can further enter the spiritual world. But otherwise, they will only reach the fringe of the spiritual world. And the devotees, as we mentioned earlier, they can enter the spiritual world where they can associate with Bhagavan. So these are like three levels of, or three destinations where the three types of yogis can reach.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Now it is very clear because it was a bit, confusing about the destination, the actual spot or the place or the location where Paramatmavadi reaches. So in effect, they are also in Brahmajyoti only, but just at the border.
Yes.
Or you can say in the border of the
Yes.
spiritual world. That too, I think the Vaikunta where Chadurbahu
Yes.
Narayana resides.
Yes. Yes.
They cannot even think or even dream about Golaka Vrindavan, where they can have the association of Lalita Shama Sundara Divahu form. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Also, Prabhu, your audio was very clear, video was also very clear. That was, I think, we had very good connectivity. So it was very clear. Hare Krishna. So, any other devotees? Vishwa Kalyan, Gaurav Prabhu, please. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandar Pranam. First of all, I want to appreciate and congratulate you for a wonderful lecture, Prabhu. You very nicely and succinctly summarized the entire chapter, the progression towards this, and at the same time, very, very beautifully explained the nectar from this verse, the essence of Veta Raga Bhaya, and at the same time understood Bhava as well. So it's so inspiring to see our senior devotees who are leading by their example, understanding Srila Prabhupada's books to such deep extent, and at the same time applying it in their lives and showing us and demonstrating us and leading us through their example and through their nectarian instructions. I must say that to understand the full depth of this lecture, I want to hear it again and again because you've given so many definitions and some wonderful statements. I remember especially about why Krishna appears. So it's not, that was also very interesting to hear that what is he liberating the liberated from the separation. That was so nice to hear as well. So such nuggets, there are so many transcendental jewels hidden in this that I feel like I have to repeat hearing again and again from this nectar. If you permit me, I would just like to add one more uh, shadow of a nectar drop to this ocean, that there is a slight difference between Brahmavadis and Mayavadis. Both are aspiring to, or both have an impersonal conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the Brahmavadis are not offensive, or they do not deny the Supreme Personality of Godhead having a transcendental spiritual form. So they understand that aspect, but they are either attracted to the beautiful spiritual effulgence of the Lord, or they are ignorant of it and merely aspiring towards the Brahma Jyoti. So the impersonalists or the Mayavadis, so impersonalist is a larger bracket who include the Brahmavadis as well. And as you rightly mentioned, their destination is the Brahmajyoti or the Brahman effulgence. And Srimad Bhagavatam gives two beautiful examples of such personalities who had the Brahman concept of the or Brahman understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who aspired towards it. Now they are Shukadeva Goswami and the Chatushkumaras. So because they were not offensive towards the lotus feet of the Lord, they had progression in their understanding of the absolute truth, and they attained Vaikuntha as well going forward. So they are on the progressive path of bhakti, whereas the Mayavadis are specifically and intently offensive to the lotus feet of the Lord. As Brahmadeva says in Brahmaji says in Bhagavatam, Aruhya krichena param padam tata patanti adaha. They fall down. Why? Because they have offended the lotus feet of the Lord. How? Because they consider that whenever the Lord descends into the material world, as you have also beautifully mentioned, Prabhu, about the incarnations in the lecture, that they concoct that the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a material form similar to what other jivas have in this world, which means the Supreme Personality also is subject to the three modes and the laws of material nature, making him subservient to the material nature. So therefore, their conception of the absolute truth is very, very offensive. Therefore, they fall down from their position, as you also elaborated in your lecture, Prabhu. But I just wanted to make that distinction between the whole platform of impersonalism and the specific subset who are Mayavadis. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Shagla and Prabhu. Thank you for your inputs as well. Hare Krishna. Any other questions or doubts? Hopefully, Krishna willing, from next week we'll resume our program in the hall. So that's information. And if there are no further questions, we can wind up the session. So session was there, Prabhu? I think we need to announce.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. About the
announce about this.
Yes, Prabhuji. Requesting all devotees, please, if you have time and energy. Of course, I know you all have interest. Please attend every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Kuwait time and 9:30 p.m. India time. Chaitanya Charitamrita class. We have a temple restaurant Brahmachari, a highly elevated Prabhu, giving us nectarian discourse on Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are just in the beginning of Madhya Leela. Nevertheless, if nobody has joined so far, please make it a point to join. It's a humble request. And as Shivana Prabhu told, we will resume with the will of Vaishnava, Acharyas and Lord Krishna, our Aboli for 9 to 1 program every Friday morning from next week onwards. Please, humble request. Please do not miss it. Please come with family, friends, relatives, colleagues. And please be merciful to those who are not already in Krishna consciousness. At least ask them to come, sing, dance, honor prasadam, and go back. Somehow motivate them. Bring them once. I'm sure that they will not leave the association. So please be instrumental. Please be dear to Lord by spreading Krishna consciousness. So we have many physical hall programs, house programs, as well as online programs going on. Depending upon your time and energy, please attend. It's a humble request from all of us. Many devotees, especially senior devotees, are Samanta Prabhu, Shivanakshana Prabhu, Anuttama Prabhu, Amarjan Prabhu. I'm not naming everyone. They are working so hard to give this association and the benefit of this transcendental knowledge. This is the oasis in this desert. So please make use of it. This is our humble request. Please consider our request at least once. Then you take decision. If you don't like, please don't come. But I am sure devotees, acharyas and Lord are so merciful. They will drag us towards them, with their mercy, with their love, with their affection, and we will relish the nectar of bhakti. May all Vaishnavas, Acharyas and Supreme Lord bless all of us for that. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shovana Prabhuji, for the opportunity to comment on this topic. Thank you.
Hare, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Sudarshana Prabhu. So as Prabhuji announced, hopefully we'll resume our programs coming Friday. So please, all are welcome with you and family members as usual. Hare Krishna. So we'd like to thank specifically our heartfelt gratitude to His Grace Anuttama Gopal Prabhu for accepting the request to take today's class and enlightening us and inspiring us in Krishna consciousness. Let us express our appreciation and prayers for Prabhu by taking the step of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare
Krishna, Krishna,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Vancha kalpataripyascha kripa sindhubhyo cha patithanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Maharaj ki jai. Nandi.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Anuttama Prabhu ki, thanks Prabhu, very nice class, Prabhu.
Yes, His Grace Anuttama Gopal Prabhuji ki jai.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Guru Maharaj. Thank you.